Today we're back on the Squarebody, and we got to put tires on the truck. And the owner of the truck has had these wheels for quite some time, wanting to put them on that truck and never did. So we went and got them, and we're going to clean them all up, and we're going to put on 4 new tires. And I got them ordered up here. I went and visited him, and I showed him some of the tires that I was considering getting for it and putting on there, and I asked him to, see what he thought, if there's anything in there he liked, and he chose these. So these are a Mastercraft tire, and they're an extra load. They're not a light truck tire, but they're not a passenger tire. They are an extra load tire, as it's called. So should suit him just fine. I imagine it'll probably dry rot before he wears the tread out. So first things first, we're going to get all the weights off these, get the valve stems out, and get them washed up and cleaned up and ready to go.
We put new valve stems on all of them and the black sealer around the bead. He's getting the new tires on now. These tires are able to go on a 7 to 8 inch wheel, wide wheel, and this is 8, so this is the widest that it can go, but it seems to be fitting just fine. The bead's sealing good, so it should be fine.
It's 32.
Now we just got to get them balanced, and then you can just put them on.
Got the tires back from being balanced. Everything turned out really good there. And I went to Summit Racing and got some new center caps. He had some, but if I remember right, they were kind of rusty. So, for $7 a piece or $8 a piece, whatever it was, we just have new ones. Since I was waiting on the lug nuts and center caps to show up, I went ahead and started working on the exhaust. Unfortunately, I lost a lot of the footage. I accidentally deleted. I thought I downloaded already, but I didn't. So I missed a bunch of it. And so I guess we'll just recap. The owner had some used exhaust that was given to him, and he bought a couple pieces. He bought a couple new of these these cheapy mufflers, and he bought two tailpipes. Two mufflers, two tailpipes, a bunch of clamps, and a bunch of hangers. And he had some used intermediate pipes that were actually set up for long tube headers. Well, we couldn't use the long tube headers, and we really couldn't use the intermediate pipes by themselves. So what I did was, since I knew we were going to use the tailpipes and the mufflers, I went ahead and set this up. See if I can get better light here. I hung the mufflers and the tailpipes and got them into position where I want them, so that our intermediate pipes are in a location that we can work with, because from this point forward we kind of have to make whatever we want, because we just don't have, nobody makes this pipe, so we're just gonna have to create it. So I took the mufflers and the hangers, everything's kind of loose fit. It's snug enough to hold it, but not too tight that we couldn't get it apart. So the mufflers, like I said, are new, are the clamps and the hangers. There wasn't enough clamps, we got some more of them, but the problem with this is I needed to tilt these mufflers to get the outlet the way I needed it. So when I did that tailpipe back there, I don't know if you can see the tailpipes right here and right there. Those two tailpipes wanted to keep falling down and twisting the mufflers, and I don't want that. So there was no hangers back here for a dual exhaust. This was originally a single exhaust, which would have come from a Y pipe up here, and let's see if I can turn this around. Would have came from a Y pipe to the engine down through this area here with a larger diameter pipe, and then a muffler, and then one tailpipe off that side. That's all it would have been. Well, he loves V8s and he loves his dual exhaust, so we're going to give him what he wants. I could have just had a exhaust made with a Y pipe and went that way, but this is what he likes, so this is what we're going to do. And so I got the mufflers hung where I want them, and I got the tailpipes. I would say they're as close as I can get them. Just tip down slightly so the water runs out each side, but just at the same level. And we didn't have any hangers because this is again set up for dual exhaust. It wasn't set, or single exhaust, not dual. So I took the hangers he had and utilized the holes that they drilled in the frame for that hitch here and here, so that we could put our hangers there. And that was enough to hold it from falling down, but I also wanted some support back here on the mufflers. So I made a cross member here to go across in between the frame and give us a place to hang, to put the hangers. I know this is really hard. The light's awful. I had to move some lights around. Alright, so I made this cross member here. There's a vertical part that bolts to the outside of the frame right here, and then there's one on each side, and then that crossbar bolts to it right out there. That way it's able to be removed easily. And once we're happy with the hangers and how they work, and we think everything's going to be okay, then we'll take this back down, we'll clean it up, we'll prime it and paint it so it's nice and clean and neat. Right now everything's just kind of loose. It's snug, so it doesn't slide around on us, but it's not tight. So we'll tighten it lastly when we're done. But that's the gist of it using this. These aren't bent the same. Like this one kind of bends out and goes back a little more. This one's more of a true 90. But it'll just have to do. It's not that big a deal, I guess. So the next thing we have to do, grab my light. The next thing we have to do is get from the intermediate pipes up to the motor. So I was able to use this pipe here because the bend worked out real well, but the other side I couldn't. The other side, because I've moved the mufflers back quite a ways from where this was intended to be, so that other pipe just really didn't work well. It had a really severe drop bend in it right there, and the way I'm trying to do this, it came over the cross member and dropped down so low that it would hit, and I didn't want that. So I've been messing with some bends. These are this is a 45, and let's see if I can get some better light again. There we go. So this is a 45, and as you can see, that's where I need to go. That's not going to work. It'll actually sit like this, so it gives me the wrong angle. A 90 degree is too far. It kicks me way up. So I ordered up a couple of 60 degree bends. We're going to try them and see if we can get that to work. I think this is going to be an interference problem because it is right in the way. But on this side over here, I think it's just going to be a 60 degree and then maybe an extension, or I might have to cut this off back in this area and have it swelled up, have a bell end put on it. We'll have to see. But once the 60 degree angles get here, we'll check them and see how they're going to work. So I've got my 60 degree bends that came in, and they actually match pretty well. And I've gone up and put the transmission in first gear all the way down so that I can see how much interference I may or may not have. And if I put that right where I need it, the shifter's gonna hit. So my options are to, make this elbow come down lower. And if I do, that means I need an offset to come back up and get this in the right plane to go into that tailpipe, because now we're too low. Or the other option is I can take this apart and move the shifter over. There's plenty of room to move the shifter over. Up here, there's nothing it's going to interfere with. So if I pop this loose here, this rod, take this loose and move, I could probably just reverse this, like cut this loose and flip it the other way so it's more offset this way, and then it would be out of the way. And then it'd be a nice clean shot. No, I wouldn't have to do, any offsets to get us back where we needed to go. And I think that's probably the best plan I've got right now. And it's just because of this shifter. It's just ever so slightly. I mean, I could probably bend that. I don't think I really need this offset. I think they did that for clearance issues, but I think we could live without it. That's the thing about putting something different together, is it's always about compromise. Where can you give a little, where can you get a little? Now, the elbows that I ordered are 2 1/4 outside diameter, and this is 2 1/2 outside diameter. So I'm gonna go have the muffler shop just swell that up a little bit, make a bell so it fits tighter. I mean, traditionally it would go on the outside or whatever, but since they're going to be welding it all the way around, it's not going to hurt anything to go inside. And we're not going in very far because of our O2 sensor bung right there. I could probably go in farther and then cut a notch if I need to, make me feel better, but I think that's going to line up well. And as far as the other side goes, it's almost a straight shot, so that's pretty cool. That one, if I use the longer end on this side, it brings us just about where I want to be. It's slightly off, but I think we can make that work. I don't think that's a big deal. So I think I'm going to have them swell one end of one and the other end of the other. That way I can get the length out of this one. You can see they're different. I could have cut that builder kit apart and made this work, but I just felt like buying a couple 60s was going to be cleaner. So then here, all I need is just one extension. And I'm hoping we're going to match that angle pretty close. I guess we'll see. So I'm going to head to the muffler shop. They're pretty good folks down there, and they'll be able to swell this end for me. I'm going to take one of these collector ends here with me, and have them swell it just so it fits inside this snug, where I can still kind of manipulate it a little bit, but it's definitely tighter than what we got. You can see it's pretty loose, and I don't want to have to fill all that with weld. I mean, it has to be a continuous weld so it doesn't leak, but it'd be better if I started off with something snug, and the heat will transfer from one pipe to the other instead of, you know, one pipe taking it all when we're welding, and then it tend to melt it. So if you have two pieces of pipe there, then that's twice the metal to take the heat. So at least that's the theory. We'll see how it works. Old school. They bend all their own exhaust here. They only buy mufflers. Everything else is completely bent. So as you can see, that's swelled up just enough to get in there. That'll work nicely, and swelled on one end of one and the other end of the other. So now we'll see if we can get it in there and see what kind of mess we can make out of this. So the options are cut it here, weld these two together, or have this weld up and then manipulate this end and cut and raise it up. Because when I raise that end up, it's going to change this angle. The farther that goes in that way, because we're coming off at an angle, we're not exactly parallel to what's there in line, it's going to change this angle. So that'll take that angle up and close this up, or like I said, I just cut this off, weld the two together. And I have marked everything, make sure my O2 sensor is going to fit right. Everything's going to work right there. And then I've marked the lines as far as the depth we need to come in, and one alignment mark and then a second, and then I numbered them 1 and 2. And the same thing on this one. So I think I'm just going to cut it back here, cut this at the right angle to meet this tube, weld these two together first, and then, you know, check it on this again and see how it works. I think this could just be clamped and be done. I don't think I need to weld this. That obviously has to be welded, but that has some adjustment in it, so that'll help me. And this right here being just a straight pipe, once I weld it in here, this alignment really doesn't matter. We can manipulate that as we need. But I think the next step is to cut it off here and get these two welded together, which means I can tack it, make sure it's good, and then once I'm happy with everything, we'll take the entire thing out. We'll weld this as a unit, and then we'll weld this to that as a unit. Alright, it's tacked in, and I'm going to leave this a slip joint, and I'm tacked in up here. So I guess the next step is we'll take this out and go ahead and weld it all the way around, and I'm going to take this down and out of there and then weld it all the way around. This is difficult because I don't want this to leak. You know, it's why I'm trying to get the fit as tight as I can. We'll see what happens. I'm not excited about doing exhaust. Alright, that's one side in. I think I got enough clearance in here. I can get my finger through here. That's pretty good. Back here's a little bit tighter. And I think what it is, I don't know if you can tell or not, but these mufflers, this one's kicked up a little more. This one could go up too. And when you kick that up, it'll bring the inlet down, which should increase this clearance here. I think I bumped it when I was taking that pipe in and out to weld it. But I guess it's worth noting that I ran one bead around the edge of the seams where their two were together, and then I ran another one after it cooled on either side, and then another one in the middle, and then I flap disc it so that we could get it, you know, smooth here. I didn't want to get into the metal on either side. I just wanted to, you know, span that weld out. It's got just a slight hump on it around there, and I'm okay with that. This up here, I did the same thing. I just ran a bead around the outside edge where the two were meeting, and then because this was a step down, not a butt joint, then I just ran another one down below it, and then another one on top, and then just flapped this the two together, and I think it turned out good enough for what it is, I guess. I got the ball and socket joint up here, and I'm feeling it. It feels okay. I got about feeling like a 1/16 of an inch different front to back, so it's not sitting on there perfect, but it's a ball joint. That's kind of how they're designed. They can move. And my bolt holes, my bolt spacing is pretty close too, so that's good. Now the next thing I got to do is clamp this, but I don't want to do it until I've moved that muffler, because when I move that down, that should increase this clearance here, and it's going to change this gap a little bit. So I want to do that first, and then once this is where I want it, I think I'm going to lay a few tacks around here, like, you know, one here, one here, one here, just enough that it'll hold it right where it's at, because I'm not exactly, I don't know if that'll show up, it's not exactly parallel, we're just slightly off. So I don't want it to shift when we go to clamp that down, tighten it, and I don't want to weld the whole thing in. I would rather use a clamp joint. But yeah, I think it'll be okay. I mean, it's going to have to be okay for what it is. It's, at least I saved $700 to $1,000 by doing this. Now that that side's done, I'm going to try and use the offset off the factory pipe that I couldn't use and shorten it up. And you know, because it was way too much of an offset and it was too low. So I'm going to try and shorten up the offset and see if I can get it in this area here. I'll get a measurement how much it needs to go from one to the other. So much of this is just flying by the seat of my pants here. I cut off an inch off the top of this 60-degree elbow because it was hanging down below the cross member, and now we're above it. So I'm happy with that. So the next thing I got to do is figure out what I'm going to use here. I'd like to use this because this is heavier metal than the elbows and the builder kit that I got. So if I can utilize this, I would like to. So I'm thinking I'm going to cut this off. This was meant to go over 2.5 inch, of course. So I'm going to cut this off again, and then I've got to bring this down 2 inches. It needs to 2 1/4 really. It needs to be like right here, so that it sits where it needs to go towards the back. But there's not enough room here in between the two bends to take it out and raise it 2 1/4 inches. So about the most I can get is 1.5 inches. So what I might have to do is, instead of putting it straight up and down, I may have to kick it to the side and then cut it back there where that joint is, that bend, and kick it back the other way. I don't think it'll be a big deal. It's just more welding and time, of course. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is cut this section out and get it tack welded back together. It's kind of funny how simple this looks. It's just amazed at how long it takes to get this figured out, and how much to cut and where, and trial and error, and shorten this and make sure there's room to put a clamp and tighten it. Yeah, I think that's about it. I need to cut this bell end off now because this is too big. I need to cut that and then weld it to this piece, weld it to that piece. I think we're ready, but I think I better cut this off first so I can slide this into this new piece and make sure everything lines up. I've got the shifter down as far as it'll go, and we've got plenty of clearance. We're out of the way. I don't have to fool with it at all. So this is the next thing. I need to cut that off. So I cut it for the last time, and I cut the bell end off here, and we are right in the bend, so it's kind of bulgy and misshapen, and I got it tacked up here. So we're ready to take the whole thing out and weld it. So we got 1, 2, 3 seams to weld, and then I'll flap this then when I'm done as well. It ain't perfect, but it is done. Flap disc, I don't see any holes. That's one of the benefits of flap discing, is I get to go all the way around it and look for any pinholes or anything, but I think we're okay. I don't have any high temperature paint, but I want to put something on it, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a little spritz of something. We are in and done. I guess that's not really true. I got to tighten up the O2 sensors and plug them in. I'm just waiting for the paint to dry. And I got a clamp put on here. I'm just waiting for that paint to dry. I've got all the clamps tight now, all the way back. And yet, what's the one thing I still have to do? I'm so tired of being on this creeper. It's going to basically make a heat shield that's removable, so you can get to that fuel filter and just take a few bolts out. Shouldn't really be that big a deal. Should be pretty simple, really. Now that our new lug nuts showed up, we'll go ahead and get the wheels and tires on. I got the exhaust all finished up now. So I left off, I wanted to get the heat shields on the fuel lines. That's all done, that's handled. So that didn't take very long. So I went ahead and put the wheels and tires on. All those are on. We're down off the blocks. We filled up the power steering reservoir, and I have a snap-on cooling system vacuum fill. You hook the vacuum up to it and it sucks all the air out, pulls all the air out by siphon. And once you're down to so many inches of vacuum, you shut that off. You take the other end, put it into your coolant, open the valve, and it siphons. It pulls all the coolant out of your bucket into your cooling system and fills it with no air pockets. So I did that. And we got our fuel pressure tester on here, because key on, we have 52 pounds PSI of fuel pressure, and coolant's full, power steering's got fluid in it. We've turned the key a bunch of times, and we're getting ready to fire it up. I checked the scanner. So this idle is pretty good, but it's slowing down. Yeah, it's really slowing down. Where are we at here? About 52 PSI idling. Let's see what it is when you raise the idle up, but that seems pretty low. I'll turn the scanner on. I was checking throttle pedal, making sure it worked on the scanner before we start it. I think it's got a little miss. I think it's got a little miss to it. Go to the other side and see. Oh yeah, I don't hear any leaks up front in the exhaust. That's good. One thing about true dual exhaust, you can listen to exhaust and hear what's going on. I cranked it till we had oil pressure. Oh yeah. Yeah, we got oil pressure's good. Right about, say, 35. I have to look into the oil charge light. That's from the old engine. Yeah, it's got a miss. Yeah, I can feel it. Throttle cuts out. Better get the scanner, let's see what's going on. Well, it's got good fuel pressure. Waiting for the scanner to boot up here. It's got over 6, looks like about 60. We're revving it up, giving some RPM. Top that off just a little bit more. Sounds good. RPMs seem a little low. Not sure what's going on with that. Yeah, we got a misfire. fuel level sensor circuit higher open because we don't have the factory cluster, so we'll have to program that out. Engine speed output circuit problem. I talked to Justin about that. He says because we don't have a TAC, it don't see the cluster again. But the engine misfire, we'll have to figure out what it is. I'm glad that just kicked on because I would have forgot to turn that. I would have forgot to turn that off. Like cylinder number 4. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, look at that RPM. It's like 5, no more than 550. Yeah. I think that could stand to be a little higher. I'm not gonna get too crazy about them misfires until we get this RPM bumped up. I just messaged Justin, he said, yeah, we can bump that up, that's not a problem. He said the 2 codes that we were talking about there, those 2 other codes were definitely because we don't have the factory cluster, but they're definitely setting a check engine light. Oh, look, that light came on. It's been off all day and it finally comes on. How nice. Let's see. Get back here to data. I want to see O2 sensors. These are the 2 that we're using here. Bank 1 sensor 1, bank 2 sensor 2. The other 2 just have kind of a fault reading, I guess. Bank 2 doesn't seem like it's doing a whole lot here. It's kind of hanging out at the lower end of things. Might need to look into that too. We'll have to see what happens. But I think for right now, until we get this idle bumped up and that other thing taken care of, I think we're gonna, well, there's another problem too. We got no RPM. And I don't know if that's in the, yeah, see, there's where the RPM should have been a little higher. Scanner shut off, the battery's dead. I gotta charge that. I brought the charger down here. I don't know what I did with it. I don't know if it's doing that RPM thing because it's set to check engine light and there's them 2 codes or 3 codes. So we'll take care of them first, then we'll dig into the other. Justin came by yesterday and did some programming to take out the couple things that were being a code issue. And before he got here, I started the thing up, and you know, it's had that problem where it's running rich. And I told Justin it's running rich, but I got good fuel pressure. And as I went to go leave for the day, I always kind of look at stuff, I don't know, and just out of pure blind dumb luck, I seen it was wet down here. And I come up here and looked, and I touched it and smelled it, and it was fuel. The fuel pressure regulator has rusted and started leaking, and it was spraying. And then there was fuel inside here. So between Justin and I both, we believe that that fuel pressure regulator was going bad, and it was sucking fuel in the intake, causing my rich condition. So I went and got another one. I'm going to try and change this out, and hopefully it doesn't break, fall apart, whatever. It comes with a new clip, a new O-ring, so we'll see if that takes care of the rich condition and the running, because if it was sucking enough fuel in, it could have been flooding out, but I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll fix that first. It's pretty rusty in there. That is not attractive at all. So I took the screen out because it was stuck in there, and then there's an O-ring back behind it. This O-ring kind of holds that screen on the regulator, apparently. So one seals the body to the rail, and the other one seals it to the delivery, I guess. It's in, so I'll cycle the fuel pump a couple times because, you know, I want to make sure we don't have any leaks. I hear it now. Cycle it a few times. I had some water here because I washed down the gas last night, diluted it. So now I'll give it a start, see if it fires up. Runs any better. That might take care of our mist too, because we could have been fouling the plug. That gives us 50 psi. I was hoping for a little better than that, but I don't know if these are adjustable or not. But it's idling better for sure. See if we got any throttle. Oh yeah. It's still got a little sputter, but these spark plugs were all, you know, sooted up from too much fuel. So I'm gonna let it run for a while, and we'll top off the coolant. I think we're pretty much there. We're like ½ inch from the topper, so it sounds good. It sounds much better. Like that. Okay, I'm gonna let it run, get it up to operating temperature, and start moving stuff outside so we can get this thing pulled out. But a success. I'm so happy how it sounds so far, but we still got a lot to go. We gotta drive it, make sure I got the polarity of the vehicle speed sensor correct, and make sure we got the pulses correct. Justin set it for 8,000 pulses per mile, which is what that sending unit's supposed to be, but we still may have to fool with it a little bit, but that ain't bad. Make sure we check for leaks here. Nope, no leaks. All right, we'll run it till we get it up to operating temperature, and then I'm gonna recheck the fuel pressure. Yeah, we're right at 50. We'll see what it is when I give it some throttle too.
Coming out. It's been in there for a while.
Well, it's running pretty good. May have to do something with the front brakes. They got enough lining on them, but if you let go of the wheel, it darts this way. I think it's going to be a caliper sticking, because you hit the brakes and then it goes this way. So I'm going to have to go back and do some work to it here. Pull the wheels back off, clean the brakes up, but it doesn't stall.
Yeah, I can smell caliper. No, it smells like
Brakes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It smells like caliper sticking.
I mean, it's been sitting for years.
Yeah.
Shift's good. There's 55. The downshift works. 400. We got that good. acting like this. I would say the first drive, test drive was a success. I mean, it runs really good. I think our miss is just about gone. The plugs may have cleaned themselves up. I think it was apparently the only problem. I need to fix a few things, so we got to get into the brakes. You can see how much brake dust is on here. We clean these wheels up before we put them on, so get the brake dust. We'll get the wheels off, get them cleaned up again, then we'll look at the brakes. The vehicle speed, I have no registration. It doesn't register other than maybe 2 or 3 miles an hour. So I'm going to reverse that polarity on that connection, see if that takes care of it. And then I've got an oil leak. The oil line that comes off and goes to the manual oil pressure gauge is leaking. So I got to fix that. But we're at operating temp. It's like 190, 98 degrees on the scanner. And the bottom radiator hose is warm. The top radiator hose is warm. Heater hoses are warm. You got good circulation. Transmission shifted well. I was very pleased that the kick down works like it's supposed to. I was really concerned about that, but it works out just like it's supposed to. Well, it's got new rotor, or newer, and newer pads, so it was just a caliper piston was froze up. So I thought, well, we'll put a new caliper on it, but we're going to go ahead and put one on the other side too, just because, you know, it's been sitting. All right, test drive is going well. No leaks whatsoever. Idling smooth, good oil pressure. Coolant temperature is good. We're in pretty good shape here. I'm going to get some more miles on her, but I topped off the antifreeze. I don't know if I said that, but running good. Rear end still 273, really could stand to be something a little more substantial, but anyways, let's go get some gas in the old girl. I only put 5 gallons in that tank, and I may be running out if I ain't careful. Alright, so we washed it, pressure washed and hand washed it, and detailed under the hood. I think this is gonna turn out really nice and clean. I've went over it again, making sure we didn't have any leaks anywhere, couldn't find anything, and my wife is now doing the interior. She has cleaned everything up. She's getting ready to dress the floor and wash the windows. And we went ahead and did the dressing on the tires. So that's all done. And I'm gonna put a little bit more miles on it, but I think we are good to go. I'm gonna run the rest of this tank of fuel out, fill it back up, and then if we don't have any problems with it by then, we're gonna take it back to them. We are back, and we got no trouble codes, no nothing. I mean, it's running as good as I could hope. It's got tons of power. The temperature's right at 198, 97, 98, 99 degrees, depending on how hard you're on it, but it runs flawless. I couldn't have hoped for anything better. I'm gonna try and adjust the rear brakes though. I'm gonna adjust the rear brakes, and that's it. We're shipping it. It's going back. We're done with it. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. Catch you on the next one.